Today, I'm talking to you, small business owners, about the exit price trap. It's what happens when you don't properly plan for the exit and sale of your business, and it can cost you a lot of money. I'm going to be sharing with you the example of a recent client that I worked with where failing to plan cost him over $250,000 and why he was perfectly happy with that expense at the moment I spoke to him. Pay attention if you want to get a higher price for your business.
I'm David C. Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses while controlling risk. So if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it.
Are you a small business owner that's thinking about exiting your business now or in the next few years? My team and I are here to help with our unique zero commission program that we've been using since 2016. We can show you what your business is worth, prepare the package you'll need before you meet your first buyer, even run a confidential online advertising program for you just like business brokers do. And we'll coach you through the whole process, or you can hire us to manage it all for you, including coordinating your whole sell-side deal team. Head over to howtosellmyownbusiness.com to learn about how my team and I can help you get ready by watching a series of videos we prepared that explain each step in detail. And if you're ready or just curious to learn more, reach out to us and we'll get you started or schedule a call to answer your questions. I look forward to meeting you and learning more about your business. So I recently had a brief consultation with a business owner who has been in business for a very long time, and they received an offer on the business, and they weren't really thinking a lot about selling their business. They were starting to consider the possibility that they might want to look into it when suddenly this party appeared and said, "We want to buy your business." And we want to make an offer, show us your financial statements, and we'll work up a price. And it was an all cash offer. So, what does a person do? Well, he found me online and had a brief conversation where I reviewed his financial statements and we looked at the offer together and had a conversation. And the person was very happy after the end of my conversation to know that they probably are losing out on about $250,000 by taking the offer. So, how did this situation come to be? Why is the seller in that position? Why is someone happily losing out on so much money? We're going to explore that today. And I'm also going to show you how you can avoid being in the same situation because, hey, who doesn't want extra money? I mean, the goal and the reason people get drawn into a lot of content and conversation online is because it says brazenly, sell your business for maximum money, right? So today we're going to be diving into it and we're going to dive into the big reason why people will go forward and choose to sell their business for less than they could. So let's get some backstory on this. The harsh reality of what businesses are worth. Let's start there. So typical small business valuation multiples are not that exciting. In the stock market, things sell for dozens or hundreds of times their cash flow. In the world of mid-market businesses, where you've got a lot of like private equity groups and private investment groups and things are selling for like 4, 5, 6 times cash flow, sometimes even more. In the world of small Main Street businesses, typically businesses are selling for like 2, 2.5, like towards maybe 3-ish times their cash flow. And so that's not really exciting. Most of the time, when I talk with a business seller or business owner about the value of their business and I show them, hey, this is what it's going to sell for, most of them are not all that excited. They're like, wow, if that's all it's worth, I'll just keep it for the next few years. I'll get that money anyway, and then I'll still own it, right? And they're absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct, right? And so what typically then happens in the world of small businesses? Well, you know, people don't sell them. Like like there's no cash out and get rich option when you own a small business. Why would somebody ever sell a business and get such a low multiple and be happy with the transaction? Well, it has to do with motivation. entirely. It has to do with motivation because the reality is that for most of these small business owners, the cash flow they derive from the business is more valuable than the price they could get for selling the business, right? Think about that. So if you had a small business that produced $250,000 a year for you, for example, and businesses in your industry were selling for a little over 2x cash flow, let's say your business might sell for 600 grand, you would think, geez, I'd rather have $250,000 a year, right? Like it just makes more sense. So most small businesses are worth more to their owners than they are on the market because of the way the prices go. And it's not to say that business buyers are undervaluing these businesses or that business buyers somehow take advantage of sellers. Remember, the business that a buyer gets is not the same one as a seller sells. That $250,000 cash flow business to the seller, once it gets in the buyer's hands, isn't nearly as lucrative because the buyer is going to pile on a bunch of debt and they're going to have debt service and they're going to have like these other factors are going to cause that cash flow to shrink for them. And then they've got the risk of making sure the business works out long enough to pay off the bank loan and then hope maybe for some growth, and then they'll finally be able to recoup their down payment and enjoy the cash flow that the seller has. So the buyer is kind of like taking a gamble that everything's going to work out well for them, and often guaranteeing that debt with personal guarantees, putting their house on the line, all that kind of stuff. So it's not that sellers are being taken advantage of. This is just the reality of how the numbers work, right? So what then finally makes someone decide to sell that small business and get the money that is available in the market? Well, I often will say to business owners that when they finally make the decision it's time to sell the business, that they're almost engaging in some kind of liquidation activity. Because once the decision has been made, I want to sell, the behaviors often change on the part of the seller. So the same kind of vigor, energy, enthusiasm that goes into running the business that helped it grow over the course of the years is often then starting to dissipate, right? And the lack of leadership energy is going to translate ultimately into employees, feeling different about the business too. They're going to see your attitude change. They're going to begin to act differently with each other and with the customers, for example. And this can often lead to a decline in sales, a decline in earnings, and you get this death spiral evaluation where as soon as you start to show a track record of decline, every buyer is then going to price in when they look at your business this continued decline and the risk associated with it, right? So why do people sell? There's five big reasons. Five. So what are they? Burnout, boredom, and fatigue is the first one. I'm tired of this business. I don't want it anymore, so I need to sell. Someone else has to run it. Okay, that's one. Then there's health reasons. So your doctor gives you a bad prognosis, and you don't want to saddle your heirs with managing the business. And then there's divorce and the need to relocate. So these are like personal things. So like I can't run the business anymore because of these personal things. There are only four of those. What's number five? Number five is retirement. So I've often said, half jokingly, to buyers that when they find a business owner who says that they want to retire, that this is actually the least motivated kind of seller that there is. Why? Because there's a rumor going around in society that you're supposed to retire at 65. And this rumor or this idea is largely based upon the experience of employed people, right? So if you are an employee somewhere, then a lot of places will, 65, you qualify for your pension or whatever, and you retire. And that's kind of the way it's been for a long time in Western society. But I can tell you, matter of factly, that it's not how it works with business owners. Not at all. With business owners, they don't feel any particular need to retire at a certain date or age because they own the business, they make the rules. So a person who is younger-ish feeling at 65 is just going to say, "I'm going to continue doing it. I'm just going to keep on going." Right? And why not? I earn a lot of money. The business won't sell for much. I would much rather own the business, right? I've already delivered on this theme before. Same thing happens with a business owner who wants to retire. They might feel pressure from family members to put the business up for sale. And so I listen, I was taken advantage of a few times as a business broker in this way. I would have a business owner who was 65 and all of a sudden their adult children, spouse, etc., would then start applying pressure. When are you going to retire? When are you going to sell the business? And they would come see me as the broker. I would give them this really nice printed folder full of papers all about the process of how to sell a business. And they would smile. They would take that thing home, and they would take it home and they would put it somewhere prominently in their house. And then people would say, "What are you going to do about selling the business?" And they would say, "Oh, I had a meeting with the guy just last week. See, like I got all the papers." And you'd look at the nice printed folder, and that folder would buy them like another year, right? Because every time someone brought it up, they could say, "Yeah, yeah, I talked with the guy. I got to get some things together for him." Right? You see where I'm headed with this? Is they would actually use me and my point of sale materials to help like avoid the criticisms and nagging of their family, because they didn't want to sell. Like they were happy in the business, they were happy with the profits, the business gave them a sense of purpose, something to do every day, et cetera, et cetera. So what then happens? What is this exit price trap that I'm talking about at the beginning of the video? Well, let me relate a little story about the person who approached me. So this was a consulting call, and the person got this offer, and they thought, I know it's hard to sell a business for cash. They knew a little bit about selling businesses. They also knew that it's very common for someone to have to finance part of the transaction, and this buyer wasn't asking them for that. So they thought, this might be something I want to look at, right? So they had the meeting with me, and I basically said, "Why do you want to sell?" And they said, "Well, I've been thinking lately that I'm getting a little bit tired of this. This person is in their early 70s. Okay. So not 65, in their early 70s. And they've finally decided that they're tired of running the business and going into work all the time. And so we start to have a conversation about their income statement. And I start to go through it, and I'm doing the normalizing adjustments. I'm asking them questions. I'm asking them if there's any like personal expenses in the business. We get down to the bottom line. I figure out the SDE and the EBITDA approximately. I did a little bit of research quickly, and I kind of gave a multiplier what I thought it would be worth. And then the topic of undisclosed cash came up when this person revealed to me that in fact that they were pocketing some of the money in the business. And I said, well, I said, there would be a way for you to sell this business for more. You have to clean up the operations, clean up the books, make your income statement more representative of what's really going on in this business. You will show a much higher profitability level, and you will get to basically sell the business for more money, about $250,000 more. And so then they sat back and they thought for a minute, and they were like, "Hmm, yeah, I don't wanna do all that work." Now, I'll ask you watching this video, what would you do for $250,000? Like, $250,000 is from almost any perspective, it's a lot of money, right? In a lot of places, $250,000 can even buy you a house, right? And so, like, some younger people are so motivated by that kind of money that they might even do something like commit a crime, right? Like, I mean, I wonder sometimes why people get involved in some kind of criminal activity, and I've got to think that some of it's motivated by the money, right? And so here's a person who's just like, me, I don't want it. Like, I don't want to do the work. I'll take the lower price. How did the person reach that point? It's a mental tipping point where suddenly time becomes more valuable than money, and so much more valuable than money that it becomes so that more valuable than the money that they would get from the sale of the business. Every day that we move through life, we have days in front of us and days behind us. And I know people envision this in different ways. They think about, marbles in a jar, taking one out every day, that kind of thing. But when you like, I'm thinking about this because I'm going to be 50 this year. And I just started realizing the other day that I've got more days behind me likely than in front of me, right? Up like that's, I guess, what you call being middle aged. Like you hit this point where you're like on the way down. There's no more, the path ahead of me is shorter than the path behind me. Well, by the time I get to my 70s, another 20 years from now, I'm probably going to be realizing, holy cow, the path in front of me is getting pretty short. And I wanna be free to do whatever I want with that, and maybe it's spending time with grandchildren or going on trips or whatever it is, right? And so that's the tipping point, and this is the thing that people do not see coming up in front of them, right? What do I mean? Well, All kinds of business owners all the time are working in their business, making good money, managing it in a way that they feel comfortable with. In the case of this example I'm sharing with you, the owner of the business was comfortable doing what he was doing, even though on paper his business didn't look as good as it could. He was definitely managing it in a way to maximize his present day gains at the expense of what the exit valuation was going to be. And he was never thinking about the fact that the exit was coming up, right? So he just continued to be head down, working in his business, working on on of the way operating it in the way he did, with a present day, present moment mentality, never looking towards the future and that exit. And what ended up happening cost him $250,000, right? Nobody ever plans to lose $250,000, but this is how it happens. And it's because business owners are in there and they don't think ahead and they hit that tipping point. So, what is the advice? The advice is you need to realize that that tipping point is on the horizon sometime. You are going to reach a time where your time is more important than the money, and the time is going to be putting you into a position where you're willing to take a perceived discount on the value of your business. Remember, I said that businesses are always worth more in the mind of a seller than they are to a buyer. So you're going to be willing to take that discount. And this is when the retirement person truly reaches the point of motivation to equal the motivation created by those other four reasons I mentioned earlier: burnout, boredom, and fatigue, divorce, poor health, and the need to relocate, right? So for buyers, I always say make sure that seller who's saying they want to sell for retirement truly is motivated to retire, that they're not just talking about it because they're fishing around trying to figure out what the business is worth, that they really do want to retire. They've hit that tipping point. Um, you need to start acting earlier. Basically, you actually need to make a decision. Am I going to be serious about the exit of my business? Am I going to be serious about maximizing its value? Am I going to be serious about trying to get the highest price that I can? If you are, then you need to take some actions, and 2025 is the best time to get going. So, what does that mean? It means all the stuff that I talk about all the time. It means start to operate your business in a clean fashion, start reporting all your revenue, clean up the personal expenses you jam through the business. You want your financial statements to look as great as they can, not just for you or for the buyer, but for the buyer's banker, right? The banker needs to be able to see that it's safe to make a loan on your business for someone who wants to buy it. And if you're not quite sure what to do, give us a call. We work with people all the time. We've actually got a whole bunch of clients who have gone through and done business valuations well in advance of when they think that they're going to sell their business, because they actually want to have some kind of scorecard. And then every year, when they get their new financial statements, we'll update the valuation so that they get an idea of where they're headed and what the business looks like from the point of view of buyers and everyone on the buyer's team. So your time is going to become increasingly more valuable to you as you move forward in life. And if you don't want to waste $250,000, just act now. Clean things up, get a plan in place, figure out what you're doing. That's it, really. All right. Thanks for joining me. Um, as I said, howtosellmyownbusiness.com is the place where you can learn more about how I help people. But we'll see you next time. Cheers.
So, how can you learn more about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses? Easy. Go over to my blog site, davidcbarnett.com, where you can learn more about me and how I work with my clients. You can learn more about my books and courses that I've prepared for you. You can find out how to subscribe to my email list, the YouTube playlists, and more. There's literally hundreds of hours of content there, all for free, and I'd love for you to be my guest. Special thanks go to Mark Willis at Lake Growth Financial, today's video sponsor. Mark helps people better manage their personal and business finances through the Bank on Yourself insurance strategy. This is something I've done personally and I've seen others use it successfully for years. Go to newbankingsolution.com to find all the interviews I've done with Mark and learn more about the advantages of these programs. While there, sign up for a free consultation to learn what this solution might look like for you.